So now let's talk about working our questions into the interview process. There's a number of styles that may come at you from an interview perspective. We're going to talk about how to carefully weave our questions in to make sure that our questions get answered. So by the end of this lesson, we will know how to read the interview to know where to place our questions. So first thing we need to do is read the room. We need to get a feel for the format that's going on, and that's only if it wasn't provided ahead of time. We need to understand what kind of interview this is going to be, and that way we don't force our questions in. So we want to work our questions in. Make sure that as we've got our list of questions, make sure your most important questions are at the top. I like to move from role to manager to company, but you do what feels right for you. And again, I would rank them by priority. If understanding the company is the most important thing, put that at the top of your list. There's no judgment here. And also with your questions, don't be afraid to share your goals to let them know more about you. That's important in the conversational piece, to make sure that you share a little bit of something maybe they aren't asking for. It's good for them to know what your ambitions and goals are. That helps them read you a little bit better. So there's different interview styles. Behavioral is my personal favorite. From the company standpoint, I think behavioral is the best way to interview. And we'll talk about that in the next lesson, how to work in that scenario for your questions, but also for what you can expect from the interview process. And I think more and more companies are shifting to behavioral, so I gave a whole section to it. If it's rapid fire, where they're just question, slow them down. Make sure you're paced at a level that you can handle. Don't fall victim to going through their rapid fire, because they're probably just checking a box and trying to get candidates in, questions answered, and out. You want to help them have a better interview. They're not getting to know anything about you other than just qualifications, which there's probably, if they've down selected, those candidates are all probably some level of qualified already anyway. If you're really trying to find the best long-term fit, a rapid fire question and answer is not going to be the way to get that. So help them see that by making it conversational. Slow them down, ask questions back. If they struggle with that, then make sure you've got time at the end for all your questions to get answered. Don't let them just run you out. Otherwise, you already know you don't want to work there. Then there's the unstructured interview. This is good for you in terms of that it leans towards conversational. So you'll be able to lean into this conversation. But it should also show you that either this manager or the company itself doesn't take the interviewing process very seriously, because they didn't take the time to build consistent interview processes. And that's not a good way to run a ship, in my opinion. They should already have their questions ready, and they should be ready with their answers that they're looking for. That way they can listen and to what you have to say. And in an unstructured format, it's not my favorite style. It leads to inconsistent questions that are being asked. You're not getting the same questions that another candidate's getting a lot of times. And so, but it does lean towards conversational. So lean into that side of it and make it conversational. This should favor you with you being prepared for a conversational interview. If it's problem solving, take the time. Take your time with problem solving, any problem solving. We used to do problem solving in the behavioral interview. We would have one question that was specific to problem solving. Always take your time and ask questions. They know you're not an expert in what they do. They know you're not an expert in maybe any of the examples they're using. What they want to see is your problem solving skills, and most problems are solved with an understanding. And the way you gain that understanding is asking questions, getting context on your environment. So don't be afraid to ask questions to understand any hidden rules. Sometimes they're expecting you to ask certain questions in order to solve the problem. Can't solve the problem without the questions being asked. So take your time with it. Don't get rushed. That'll only make you more nervous. In a group or panel interview, always assume that you're going to walk into multiple people. If you're just assuming you're going to get a one-on-one interview conversation, that's a bad assumption. Always assume there will be more than one person in the room, whether they're set up as a panel or just set up around a table as a group. Usually companies are trying to save time in the interview process, and so they're going to try to group the people that are going to make the decision in the room together to ask the questions they need. Now there's other formats where they run you through a cycle of you meet with this person, then this person, then this person. That's okay too. It just means you've got an opportunity to get more input on the company, the role, and the manager you'll be reporting to from your questions as you go through the process, and you'll be able to get different opinions. In a group setting, when you ask one of your questions, only one person may end up answering, and so it may give you less feedback. But that's okay. Just assume you'll always either be in a panel or group, and then you won't get nervous when you're outnumbered as you walk into a room. And don't look at it as you're outnumbered. Just look at it as there's more people that want to get the question. They want to hear. There's more people to hear your answers. You've got an audience that you didn't have before. Don't treat it like public speaking. You're just there to have questions asked and for you to ask questions of the group. So in conclusion, work in your questions based on the flow. You've got to read the room, and you've got to treat it, like I said before, like a cocktail party. You know how to ask questions and interweave questions. If somebody's in the middle of asking you a question, instead of answering it, you just ask them a question back, you're not going to be well received at that cocktail party. So you want to treat it the same way when you're in an interview. They ask a question, you give them an answer. Then you try to work a question of yours in and get an answer back. It shows interest on your side. At the end, ask any questions. At the end of the interview, they'll usually say, any questions? Anything you haven't had a chance to ask at that point, ask it. It's important that all of your questions get answered. You don't want to leave and have to follow up with questions. It won't help you in your decision on if you want to work there.